blow. We know we have 3 whales a little up to the north, but I'm checking out around the point here because this is one of the hot spots to pick up whales. They come in very close here to avoid the East Australian current. Now, if you have seen Finding Nemo, one of the great cartoons of our time, probably more scientifically instructive than any other cartoon I've ever seen, and quite factually correct in many ways. The warm EAC is the current that rockets down the east coast of Australia, where the whales and turtles catch a lift when they're going south. But conversely, at this time of the year, they're going north, so they have to avoid that warm current. The humpbacks cruise along at about 3 to 4 nautical miles an hour. That's about 8 kilometres an hour. And the actual warm current can be moving at pretty much near that speed. So in order to make headway and conserve energy, the whales swim very close inshore at certain parts where the current is most affected. And that's why such a good spot to see whales at Port Stephens. And although anywhere along the coastline, the east coast of Australia, there's a good chance to see it from headlands, particularly promontories that stick out to sea a little bit. So, well, we're going to run north now. So we're well and truly in the Humpback Highway. There's my old house over there, sadly ruined today, the old cottage of the Point Stephens Lightkeepers. There were 3 lightkeepers here during the 1800s and early 1900s and their families. In fact, at one point there were 11 children on the island, and because it is an island, they couldn't just walk to school. So they had a school teacher living on the island. She was billeted in the lighthouse and used to hold school for the 11 kids that were living on the island. What a great thing. Go to school in a lighthouse.
I'm going to ask you a couple questions real quick, okay?
Sure. Yep.
One moment.
Okay. Got some dolphins joining us here. Now, these are probably not bottlenose. They're almost certainly short-beaked common dolphin, but very friendly little critters. Just over on our right there at 2 o'clock, 50 meters. And we got a pot of whales directly ahead of us at 12 o'clock, just on the other side of that little runabout. So we're going to go and join those whales. We may get these dolphins to come with us. If they're a common dolphin, they're usually very sociable. And they'll often come and join us. Oh, no, these are bottlenose. Ah, there you go. We don't often see them out this far. Back to me. Check. All right, let's go find those whales. A little bit of rock and roll around the point here, so keep your eyes on the horizon to keep your head steady and your breakfast where it should be. You could probably twizzle that around.
You're on. Where's?
Airport. 0. Yeah, Charlie, maybe I'm gonna go and see if the are real. Yeah, but I was just.
Okay, we're getting fairly close to them now. So the way the whales tend to travel is they'll take a big breath, and in fact they'll take 4 or 5 big breaths, and then they'll dive or sound and swim underwater for anywhere between 4 and 8 minutes. And then when they come back up, they repeat that. So as I mentioned before, they don't travel very fast, only about 3 or 4 knots, nautical miles an hour. And they tend to go from headland to headland in a fairly straight line. But it is mating season, so the boys and girls are pairing off. So let's see, just got to wait a little moment. Here we go, just behind us. At about 5 o'clock. So we're going to just stop here and wait for them to catch up. Now, of course, the term social distancing we've become very familiar with over the last 3 months because of COVID. and there are social distancing measures that all vessels have to keep from whales, and nothing to do with the COVID virus, but just so that it doesn't interrupt the whale's passage, and it also is there to protect vessels from accidental collisions. So 100 metres from adult whales. But we have found over many years, as the whales have become very familiar with boats along the coast, but not threatened by whaling, is that some of these whales get very curious. And so if they approach us, that's fine. We just make sure we're shut down and they can find their way around us. And it does happen quite a bit. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep. So we had a question: could a whale do any damage to a boat? Well, you betcha. We're talking about whales that can grow to about 15 meters in length, which is the same length as this boat, and 50 tons in weight, which is more than twice the weight of this boat. So if there was a collision, my money would be on the whale. Their main defense is their tail, which is about 5 meters across. Oh, there they are over on our port side. 9 o'clock, we're going to go and join them. So we're going to run along on their port side. So if you are on the starboard side of the boat, you're probably going to get the best view, or up the front. There's a couple of whales here. We tend to see pairs of whales are the most common number we see on migration. There she blows. Got some dolphins travelling along with the whales. Of course, dolphins and whales belong to the same family group. They are all cetaceans. That means they share a common ancestor. Although vastly different in size, they are very similar. Up comes that big tail. Looks like a sounding dive. You might notice the underside of the tail, different colouring on every whale. It's a bit like their fingerprint, and no two whales have exactly the same colouring underneath. Predominantly in the southern hemisphere, they're white underneath and a sort of charcoal grey on top. Of course, we have a very famous whale in Australia, on the east coast, Migaloo, the white fella. He's the world's best known, and perhaps very few other white whales in the world, humpbacks. And Migaloo comes up our coast. We've been seeing him over 25 years now. He's about 31 years old. Very famous whale. He's got his own Facebook site. Okay. Thanks. So we've got, looks like 2 full-grown humpbacks and a whole bunch of looking like oceanic bottlenose dolphin, Tursiops truncatus. Different to the dolphins we see inside the bay. They're a little miniaturized version of their oceanic cousins. So now we've got to wait for a little while. You'll see those smooth patches in the water there, what we call the footprint. The old whalers used to think it was whale oil leaking out of the whales as they travelled along, but we know it's not. It's just their massive body that changes the water effect on the surface as they swim along. Their giant tail can be up to 5 meters across, as big as the surface area, as big as that black net out the front of the boat. Love one.
You're on Wes. Back on track.
Okay, these dolphins are coming in. These are the largest dolphin in the world. Tursiops truncatus, the oceanic bottlenose. In the warmer months, we take people swimming with these. And it's a fantastic experience to be in the water with them. These are the largest, have the largest brain of any mammal on the planet in comparison with their body mass. Very sophisticated brain, actually bigger than the human brain, but the body mass is larger than the human brain. But these theoretically are potentially the next most intelligent mammal on the planet. Bigger brain than the primates. Very smart. They won't be very far away because the dolphins are travelling with them. Yep. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, great.
You can carry that bit, right?
Okay. As you can see, they love bow riding in front of us. Whales are back up on our starboard side, 3 o'clock. So we're a bit lucky in Australia. We have the two largest populations of the great whales of the world that travel our coastline. Not every country with a seaboard is quite so lucky as Australia, but like most countries in the world with a seaboard, we were a whaling nation, and many of our cities along the coast were very involved with whaling. Mossman in Sydney was a land-based whaling station during the 1800s. Eden, Twofold Bay, very famous whaling spots. But Australia gave up whaling back in 1978. I believe we were the first country to stop whaling and recognise that the great whales of the world had a right to survive, and of course it was mainly whale oil that the whalers were interested in. No longer necessary. Whale oil was replaced with synthetic oils around the late 1970s, so we no longer need their oil. In fact, whale watching has become a very important part of Australia's coastal economy. Little towns and villages like Port Stephens have become very dependent on whale watching. Look at those dolphins bow riding the whales. They're a bit like icebergs, whales. You don't really get to see how big they are until they jump out of the water. But I can assure you the bigger whale here, female, is equally as long as this boat. Oh, there's three of them. Oh, there's a little one in there. So that's mum and an escort and a juvenile. Probably maybe a whale of 1 or 2. Generally the babies stay with their mum for around 2 to 3 years, entirely dependent upon mum's milk for the first 18 months to 2 years of their life. After that, mum's back in the mating game, and she'll keep the calf a little bit further away from her for its own protection, because the big boys will be around again. Looks like he's got something on his rod. Dolphins are still playing with us up on our bow, and periodically going over to say good day to the whales. So 3 whales, 2 adults, a mother, an escort, and a calf of probably 2 years. Okay.
We'll see.
Okay. still there.
Tom was wanting to watch this run, and I was
Yeah.
thinking about the run, and then Brent just said to him, please don't, people on board, he's hard to catch. He said, oh no, I just want to see, I just want to see the elevator.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's a little teeny chap back there too.
Yeah.
Around,
Yeah.
just be away there. I mean, I'm sure you are.
Okay, we're just going to make a quick departure and pick up a bit of rubbish. Looks like a balloon, but we'll come back and pick it up. Unfortunately, we've had a container ship lose some containers off the coast here just recently, and all sorts of rubbish has started to break out of the containers. So we'll plastic, of course, has become a real problem in the oceans of the world, and as much as it might be fun to at a party to release balloons with helium, many of them wind up drifting out to sea, and they are the single most problem for turtles. So turtles, one of the staple foods of turtles are jellyfish, and unfortunately balloons, when they sink to the bottom after they pop, look very much like jellyfish. And of course when the turtles eat them, they can't ingest them, can't pass them, and they often wind up dying. So I'm sure the folk that release the balloons don't understand that.
No, where is our boat?
It's our boat hook. Well done, guys. Roger's picked up the killing machine. We're very aware in Port Stephens our beautiful natural environment is our great asset. The ocean, the pristine beaches and river catchments and lakes. So most folk that move to Port Stephens, even if they're not involved in tourism, care enormously about our lovely place. It is a unique spot in Australia. As I say, you'll see looking towards the land there the volcanic peaks of the ranges that form part of the Great Dividing Range. It's where the catchment of the rivers that flow down into the estuary have their start. Okay, let's go pick up on those whales again, and the dolphins are probably wondering where we went. Just leave it on the back seat, maybe.
Nick's got it.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Is it good?
You got the boat hook, Mick? Okay, cool.
Booger.
Look, just like a bit of concentrated makeup.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, just over on our port side. 10 o'clock. Okay, here we go. You know where the whales are because the dolphins are sitting on top of them. Of course, what we'd like to see would be a breach, which is when the whales jump out of the water. But there's absolutely no way of really predicting if or when that might happen. They all do it. There is a time of the day, late in the afternoon, just before sunset, that we have noticed over many years. If they are going to jump, they'll do it then. But lots of reasons suggested why whales breach, and of all the whales, the humpbacks are most noted for their out-of-water activity. I think we got our dolphins back on the bow again. Just off our port side now, they're surfacing again for 4 or 5 breaths. Oh, he's rolling over sideways. One of them, that's great. Spectacular sight. They coordinate their breathing and swimming functions when they travel together. Look at the size of that female. So in this instance, amongst the mammals, a little different from what usually happens with mammals, where the males tend to be larger proportionately than the females. In this case, with humpbacks, the females are at least 10 to 15% larger than the males. And that's because once they've calved, they have to feed the calf off their own body fat. And they might have to do that for about 3 or 4 months before they start feeding again. So literally the girls have to not only swim for 10,000 kilometers as a round trip on their own fat reserve, but feed the calf. So the males don't have to grow quite as large, but the females are bigger. Dolphins back on the bow. So the attraction for dolphins to bow ride is that the vessel pushes a pressure wave in front, and it's that pressure wave that they get a bit of a free lift on. Back up again, one of them, looks like the youngster. Oh, a little bit of action happening here. You guys all right? a tail lob. So the whales clean themselves. Because they don't travel very fast, they can accumulate barnacles and whale lice. So a lot of their activity is to actually clean their skin. In fact, as they swim along, their skin is slowly sloughing off. Little particles of flakes of skin are constantly coming off, and that keeps them clean. Powerful tail. The tail muscle on a humpback weighs almost half the weight of the entire animal. It's its main propulsion. Up goes that little tail of the junior. That's what we'd like to see. That's one of the adults coming right out there. You get to see the sheer size of that animal. Jeez. Not easy to use this thing.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop because it's, by the time you get the feedback, it's
God,
over.
I know. You all right, love? Pardon?
Frank, I'll put it back on you.
Okay. Well, that was spectacular. 50 tons humpback clearing the water, and it takes just 4 or 5 sweeps of giant tail to launch this huge animal in the water. I think we were something like 2,000 horsepower behind that vessel. Oh, we've got an eagle up above us, a sea eagle. All right, well, we're going to do another pass. Oh, yes, a white-breasted sea eagle. That's Australia's largest raptor. Having one of those humpbacks thinking, if they were a little bit smaller, I'd have a go at those. But sea eagles are predominantly fish eaters, but they'll pretty much have a go at anything they can lift up. Some farmers have even been a bit worried that they'll pick up lambs, but yes. All right. So we're going to keep going this time. We'll pass these humpbacks and head up to Cabbage Island, where we've got a colony of fur seals start to form during the winter. We see fur seals aggregate on the north side of one of the islands. Starting to get a bit more action here. I've actually got rails on the front camera now. Yeah, on the pole camera. Yeah, there is, isn't there? Maybe water. they're spending quite a bit of surface time here, which is great for us. And the juvenile is really quite active, throwing those tail lobs like a lot of young animals and humans. They're very frisky, curious. Starting to head inshore a little bit because they're feeling the effects of the east coast current. So by swimming inshore, they pick up a very slight cold countercurrent, which is actually running north along our beaches. So it gives them a little bit of a lift going north. And that's the current that carries all the sand up the east coast of Australia. And of course, Stevens has the largest mobile sand dunes in the Australia. The Stockton dunes. Look at that tail coming up. Now that's a sounding dive, and there is a chance that we might breach. When this one goes down, they're going to be underwater for a bit, but they might, who knows, get ready with those cameras, guys. We could get something. Okay. Just think breach. Could you imagine trying to train a humpback? Okay, come on, jump, and I'll give you 3 tons of. Food of the southern is a little station called, and they're found in the south around the ice shelf. Humpbacks go feed. They'll eat many times their body weight during those summer months, putting on burn on their 10,000 round trip to the barrier. Much, you might have a snack, a couple of ton of mackerel along the way if there's enough. But they can really make the entire journey on their own. We'll wait for one second, and then we're going to board a cabbage tree. So we're thinking of 3 jumping out of the water all together. just got to hold that and okay. Oh, we've got a big pot coming in from our starboard beam at the moment. There they go. Yep. Now I think these are common. Yeah, 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 yeah. These. Right. Okay. Oh, looks like those whales are just surfacing again on our port side.
The little guys we swim with, you got commons on the foredeck on the bow.
Are they
That's what
common?
we're filming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
I know he's about to put Wesley now, though. Back up.
You can hear that exhalation of breath. Massive lungs, the size of a small car. Let's turn the motors off so we can hear that breathing. the whales are just under us. And have a little look at our depth sounder, see if we've got whales under us.
Sprinkling a little bit.
Okay, well they seem to be moving off, so I think the whales have probably moved off as well, so we'll just follow on a little bit.
Not there on the back. Hole.
I'm on the phone, yeah.
They're getting the comments up the front saying,
Are they? You sure the commons?
hold on.
Yeah. So we still have these big oceanic bottlenose around us, but we are seeing occasionally a few common dolphin come on in. But these are much bigger animals than the commons, and generally they don't get on so well together. So this is fantastic to see a bit of a mix of commons and bottlenose, as well as those whales. As you can see, it's all going on off the coast of Stephens today on Port Stephens Live. I feel like we've been in hibernation for the last 9 weeks. quite a lot. Pardon? Okay. Yeah, the oceanic bottlenose are top dog in the ocean. Oh, here we go. We've got the whales on our starboard side there, Wesley. They're keeping us on our toes.